Great. I've got a presentation today, and I am nowhere near beginning to understand what on earth I've been doing since, well, probably since I left RCA, actually. I've just been drawing like a maniac, and I have no real understanding about what that is yet. And coupled with the journey to the Arctic Circle, which is what I'll tie into today to the presentation, I'm just only beginning to sort of even want to start looking at that. So I thought this is a great place to share some of the experience and some of the work I made, and I'm just starting to kind of bring it together, or just starting to really unpack it. So if you will bear with me and I'm allowing and allow me to share it, then that's what I'm going to do. And thank you all for being here. Let's see. Share. Can you see my screen? Okay. You will find traces of my experience in the materiality and gestures of the drawings I made for you. The drawings were made as I sailed inside one of the most remote places on our planet, the Arctic Circle. I didn't make them as souvenirs to bring back. The drawings are a record of what I experienced there. They are of a moment. The work is a direct response to the land, the light, the majesty, the creatures, and how keenly I felt time shift. They're a record of a trace, a conversation, a way of halting time and going deeper. I worked with a force greater than my own. I tapped the energetics of place, and it flowed through me non-stop for 2 weeks. In this presentation, I will share with you a small number of the drawings. I did actually make a lot. And some of the photographs are there to locate you and sort of try to give it some sort of human scale. I've only just begun unpacking what went on there. This is a first attempt to animate, articulate, and begin to build a scaffold upon which to hang this most extraordinary experience. Non-human time, a world without human trace. Here, culture lapses, civilization erased from view. It is impossible to judge scale. I failed time and time again to find a relationship to that which figures. My drawings produce a silence, a very particular spacing. They speak of an absence of time. I continue to draw as a way of registering thought forms, searching for passages of non-being into being. The sublime continually fractures my subject, creating an incredible decentering. There is a dissolution of form into a very particular lyricism. Drawing is a conversation that connects me to the world. It connects me to others. It locates my body to place. I find relationship through materials. The drawings are maps of sensation. They record an event happening, an opening of a space, capturing the mystery of what was there, barely perceptible at the time. A presencing. They hold a deep resonance. The unsaid and the unsayable in a gestural encounter. What is drawing? It's fragile, it's a freedom, and it's always teetering on the edge of becoming something else. What are the qualities of drawing? Stains, erasures, gesture. Drawing occupies a midpoint between virtual and actual, and this is a place where I love to reside. Here there is a sparseness, a resonance, an echo. There's also my trace, a very subtle trace. Drawing captures the delicacy of time. Drawing is open to change, open to being repeated. I also look back to drawings to find a new place to start from. My drawings were a witness on the trip to an unsettling of time, and I can talk more about that. An animation of the journey, throughout which time was really out of joint.
Record in progress.
Human, non-human, post-human, measurability and immeasurability. Artists aren't exceptional, but we seek out the exceptional. Drawing is the unsaid and the unsayable in a gestural encounter. As artists or as human beings, we're just passing through. When I came back from the Arctic Circle, I had every day put all of my drawings into plastic bags. So I had sort of day by day record of where I'd been, what I'd been doing, and I'd parceled them all back so that they kind of stayed protected and didn't get destroyed, because I wasn't fixing anything while I was there. So when I arrived back, I had this bag full of obviously dirty washing and all of this artwork that was just parceled up, and it was one of the most extraordinary experiences. I wasn't ready to sort of even begin to open up. So when Rupture offered me a residency, I said, would it be possible to just spend the time unpacking what I had done there? So they were very, very gracious in allowing me to do that. So day by day, I would take one packet and then I would use magnets and pins to put them up on the wall so I didn't damage them. And it was the most extraordinary experience of just sitting back and looking at what I had in front of me. And I was really honest about everything and got absolutely every single thing out that I had made, all of the ugly stuff, all of the rejected stuff, the abandoned stuff. I just put everything on the wall, and Yasmin actually came to see it. And Kate and Sully, obviously, and others. But what was great was having it all out there. I then noticed things that I hadn't noticed at the time. So there was one particular piece that looked like a blank sheet of paper and it had one little drop on it. And I realized that that was a drop from a glacier or piece of glacial ice I was working with. So it was a teardrop of the glacier. So it was a really lovely experience to have this time to do it and fill the walls full of all these drawings. And then try to record them. So try to take them down and take photographs of them. But then in true Kate fashion, she came in as I was undoing everything on the last day, and I was pulling everything off. And this was the process of taping a pin to the wall and then using a tiny magnet to fix the drawing. So I didn't, as I said, I didn't damage it. Once I'd removed all of the work, there was actually still this spacing that was there, which was really indicative of what I had experienced while I was in the Arctic. These incredible spaces where there was just an openness. And I started to think that actually, as artists, I think we're always about space. I think we're about creating space for our audiences and creating space that our artwork occupies, and creating a space that we ask questions inside of, to ourselves or to our audience. And so Kate said to me, make sure you document this as the room in its own right is an artwork as well. And it was a really interesting lesson. They say when you see the Arctic sun at midnight, that's true north. So I took a photo the night that the sun came out from behind the cloud, and that was me up on the deck. And that was how it looked when I brought it all down. But yeah, as I say, there was this sort of spacing and these markers of time and holding this area open. And I think the other thing that I've been obviously thinking about since coming back from the Arctic is this notion of erasure and this notion of things disappearing. So I had this incredible experience to go and see these glaciers, but we were very, very aware while we were there that it was a very privileged place to be while the glacier is madly retreating and global warming is really a thing. There's me standing on some sea ice. And that's it. That's as far as I've got.
Well, thank you very much. I did go and see Sharyn's studio, which was amazing. You saw those little paper clips still on the wall. It was full. It was a treasure trove. And I think the words you've actually described as part of your process, you called your maps drawings of sensation. There was so much sensation going on in that room. Because Sharyn, you should talk maybe a little bit about all the different ways you tried to document it. You showed the images, but maybe you could go back into it and talk about that, because that adds so many more sensations for the audience to grasp. Do you think you could go back to some?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. It's you sort of don't want, I didn't want to explain it away when I first presented, because I thought I just wanted to sort of have a bit of mystery and a bit of space there, but I'm really happy to, because you're right, for 2 weeks I took a very, very small, tiny little box of materials, and I had no idea what I was going to encounter when I got there. So it was, what do I take? How do I work there? I didn't know if it was going to be too cold or how it was going to be. And it was just a constant instantaneous response each day to what am I seeing, how am I feeling, what have I got to hand, how am I going to capture that, and how am I going to sort of register these notions that were so visceral. They really were. Let me go back and I'll share. I've also got so many photos, I can't tell you, that it's really hard to know where to begin with the edit as well. But we were, and the other thing is too, I think it's tricky because the photographs overwhelm the drawings as well. So it's really difficult to show, because that's such an incredible image and there's so much detail there. And so you run this risk of people sort of saying, what was it like? And can I see photos? And when they do that, that sort of draws the attention. But I mean, we were witnessing this on a daily basis, these incredible spaces full of blues and so much information. This is a tiny slither of vast panorama of the landscape.
How tall is that, do you think?
It's really hard to guess, but because we can't get super close to it, but it's about at least 50 meters high.
50 meters, so that would be like two swimming pool lengths or something.
Yeah.
Olympic pool lengths. Yeah.
And you had no way of, this was the struggle I had, was I had no way of, I was constantly trying to work out how big would I be inside that image.
Yeah.
And it was only when we would
Tiny little speck.
tiny. And when we'd land on a place where you could go on a rubber zodiac to the beach, you could see in the distance then the figure on the beach, and you think, oh my God, it's so tiny. We're so tiny in this landscape.
But did you want to draw? Is that when you drew on the photograph?
No, I didn't draw on the photograph. There was just an image I kept for you.
So I love that photograph of you with your leg out and you're very actively drawing in sort of in the landscape, and I liked it because it felt like glaciers are alive. It's all alive, and we are in relation to it. We're not outside of it. I mean, I don't know about the person sitting on the chair, but I just felt that photograph just brought out, it was a great energy, and I don't know, it felt like you were almost having a relationship with your environment.
Yeah, I really was. And I mean, the drawing, I mean, my room was so smelly, my poor bunkmate, but I was using the glacial mud. So you can see the color of the mud that canvas is sitting underneath. I was using that with the indigo ink to paint with, to draw with. So it was like my hands were in the mud.
Oh, wow. Can you fix that mud?
I'm going to try. I need to do some tests with varnish to see if I can set it. But there's some of it, a little bit of it's cracked off because obviously where it's thick and I had to roll it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Vanda. It was me constantly thinking, oh my God, what else can I do next? Like,
yeah.
And there's no point in just pictorially trying to capture that, do a nice watercolor. It wasn't about that. It was about this, all these sensations of this incredible marching of time. These glaciers are like super highways of material. So all of that, I didn't expect it to be so much black. Luckily I took some charcoal, but I would have taken more if I'd known. So these glaciers are this constant super highway of this material marching forward towards you, and then when it gets to the end, it's crunching off and turning this bright blue color.
And I mean, it's such a mournful topic, and when you see these photographs and you understand the tears, the crying, I do find them, there's something evocative in the way your work is. I mean, maybe because I know, but I do feel like there's sort of mourning going on here.
Yeah. So to Yasmin's question, for example, this is a piece of ancient glacial ice so the glacier will carve at the front. It all falls into the sea, and then you get this incredible crashing wave, and then all the fragments all break up. So you have then these amazing, I need to do another presentation where I just show you my photo album. You have these incredible glacial sculpture parks, basically, with these forms floating around. And the really super old glacial ice is this piece, which is so crystal clear. It's like a piece of crystal. You can't see you can see little bits of material in there. You can see those little black spots. So that's actually part of that mud coming down. But
have you drawn on it? You've drawn on it as well?
Yeah, so I've also traced around it. So what I was using was my pencils, and where they were water soluble, which I was using, they would start to work with the glacial ice. So as it's melting, I'm drawing. So this next one with these are with charcoal powder. So again, I was using the glacier ice, and as it's melting, I was using the charcoal.
Yeah. I guess as you went along, you must have been experimenting and finding new techniques and.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then this was tracing, and then just feeling you're right, very sad, very emotional, and thinking this thing is melting in front of, on my page. This is millions of years old of ice, and I'm drawing it. And as I was tracing, it was moving. So I was continually chasing it around. And yeah, it was really very emotional.
Yeah. I noticed at the very beginning with the board that you had, it said 5th of May 1903 or something. Is that something you found there, or was that just random?
No, it was actually something I took there. So
Oh, okay.
I found some old slates, some old, they're from schools, so someone's
okay.
done some graffiti. Is it May or Mary or someone?
Yeah.
It's written her name and her number in there, and I just thought it's so, yeah, it's so evocative as a little, and it was a tiny little slate, so it's like this. So I thought I'll put it in my bag, and what I might do is draw onto the slate each day and then erase it, but I didn't do that. It just didn't work. So
Is that at the background? Is that mud there?
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
the mud is drying up and cracking, or do you have any pictures of that sort of muddy landscape? Or the
Yeah, I do. I'll have to sort of go through and put together greatest hits. I should have done that for you today.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry.
In the last day we moored in this place, and I've got lots of Arctic clay to use actually, and it was where a glacier had surged forward in the early 1900s, in 1903 or something. It had surged forward, and then it was on its retreat, because we always think of glaciers melting and disappearing, but actually this one had moved forward, and it had thrown up a lot of clay and mud and silt and things and made these islands. So we were able to go onto this little island and work. And yeah, this area was full of this very terracotta colors and these incredible rich red, almost like burgundy color, like the dregs of a wine bottle colors.
Yeah. So lots of iron, maybe.
Lots of iron, yeah. And I was sitting there on this last day or second last day thinking, I don't know how I can even start to think about telling anybody what I've seen and what I've experienced. And so I wrote that down, and I took a photo of it in some different locations.
So what was it, overwhelming? Was it, how was it? I mean, did it feel obviously something you've never seen before? Was it like pre-verbal, or how did you sort of relate to it?
It really was, and it was I would say, you just, your mouth was sort of, you're constantly going up onto the deck and thinking, hey, I've got to somehow, and there were loads of people. So people were taking photographs, people were writing, there was filmmakers filming, there were people doing pinhole cameras, we were drawing, everyone was trying to capture it in their own way. And the problem was it was 24-hour light, so we didn't sleep, you didn't have to sleep. So you would just be like, and the captain was constantly moving the boat. I mean, there were nights where we'd moor in one place and we'd wake up the next morning, but often he'd say, we're going to moor here tonight, we'll be here tomorrow. And then next thing you'd hear the motor going and you think, no, what are we doing? We're supposed to be staying here. And he'd say, the weather's changed, we've got to go. And so we'd be on move. And so then you'd be constantly sort of trying, I mean, that video image at the end, I'm yawning, I don't know if you could hear it in the video, because I was going to bed, and yet you're sort of looking out the porthole thinking, all of this incredible scenery going past constantly. So you felt like a sort of kid in a sweet shop, just wanting to constantly kind of capture it and consume it and not miss a thing, and be there watching.
And the sleep thing's interesting, because if it was daylight all the time, you would get a lot of light, and that light has a biological effect on you to keep you awake. So did you have to take melatonin or something, or how did you manage the sleep? Did you need sleep?
You do, and you've had a really busy day. So what they said to us was, it's really disorientating. What we're going to do as a group is we're going to have the set meals times of the day. So breakfast is at 8 till 9, lunch is from 1 till 2, and dinner is at 7. And so these are the times you're expected to, well, this is the routine of the boat, and the crew and everybody needs to work around that, and you do too. And then other than that, it's up to you. So you'd go and you'd have a huge day, and you'd be clambering down onto these rubber boats, Zodiacs, and in and amongst all of this ice, we'd be down there, sort of drawing and fishing it out and photographing it underwater and doing all these things. You get back in with all your gear. I mean, you saw that last shot, and you've got rubber boots and life jackets and your kit and everything else. You get back on the boat and you have dinner, and then you have this sort of lovely chat with 30 people who are super inspiring. So you're also wired from that. And you think, I'll just pop up on deck and just sort of have that coming down time of the night. And then of course the scenery looks like this. It's not getting dark, and you're thinking, damn, at some point I'm going to sleep. And so
Yeah.
we had, I mean, I was lucky I had a porthole in my bunk. Some people didn't have any, but I'd go to bed and I eventually worked out a way of putting a towel over the porthole so that it was darker. But yeah, it definitely took me about 3 or 4 days to learn how to switch off. And often I'd put music in to just try and help me disassociate myself from the day
Yeah.
and rest.
Yeah. Interesting. And did you I guess, you know, I'm curious about all the other photographs and the boat and everything. Are you going to be able to show us more photos? Not that I don't love your work as well. It's amazing.
Yeah. I've got, I mean, I do, again, I've got sort of lots of shots that, yeah, I'll have to do another presentation where I share all of the images. I mean, it was
That's the boat. That's the boat.
Yeah, that was the boat we were on.
It's a sailboat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
So we were under motor most of the time because
Yeah.
he wanted to travel the distances, but there was a day and a half where we were fully under sail, so he needed everybody hands on deck to actually hoist the sails and get it going.
Amazing.
And one night when we were just, it must have been about, I don't know, midnight, 1 a.m. I was closing the porthole and I think I said to my cabin mate, oh my God, there's a huge boat out there. And I mean, this is like days of nothing. And all of a sudden there's this massive fishing boat on the right outside. And she said, you must be seeing things. And I said, no, I'm not. And they, because we were so beautiful under sail, this Russian fishing vessel, which they thought actually was a bit suspicious and was coming far too close to us, they radioed them and they said, why are you approaching us? And they said, because you're so beautiful, we want to take photographs.
Oh.
So we were sort of on that typical Dutch bar, you know, that Dutch barge look of sort of sailing the high seas. It was beautiful. Really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Looks beautiful.
Did you see any animals? Any, you know,
Yeah, polar bears, minke
Wow.
whales, seals,
You saw polar bears?
walruses. Yeah.
Fuck. Sorry, excuse my French.
So
Wow.
this day, the captain decided he wanted to sail northeast and just keep going until we hit the Arctic ice. And so that shot of me standing on that iceberg was there. And we woke up in the morning and it was like, well, you can see the sunshine and the blue sky. And he had tethered the boat to this 50 square kilometer piece of ice he'd found in the night. He knew roughly where it was by the satellite images, but they only update every couple of days. So he wasn't exactly sure. It wasn't like Google Maps.
Yeah.
And so we woke up tethered to this piece of ice with this gangplank going down and these 2 poles. And I looked out the window. I was like, oh my God, you know, you can actually get off the boat. And so we got off and we worked all morning. And he said, you just need to be able to come back on if I call you. And so we were always being guarded. So you can't see here, but actually there were always 4 guards stationed on the ice around us. So there was a perimeter. They were watching for polar bear and they had flare guns and rifles. I mean, they were fully loaded all the time. They had someone up the mast and we got this call, you need to evacuate. We need to get back on board because the icebergs are moving in. We're going to get stuck. Yeah. So everyone back. So it was about 11 o'clock. It's perfect. So it's like time for coffee. Let's get back on the board. Trying to desperately get all my drawings that are all these blue inky ones all back on board without everyone ruining them. And we all got back on board and we all made ourselves a coffee. And then the captain waited and he said, actually, it's fine. You can go back out. So okay. That was a nice coffee break. We all go back out. And this time I learned I'm going to work closer to the boat. And when I make a drawing, I'm going to put it really close. If it's wet, I'm going to put it really close to the gangplank so it's not so difficult to cart it back. Anyway, we start working and then another alert. Sorry, you all need to evacuate again. There's been a bear sighting. So we're like, oh, okay, good. We'll all get back on the boat and the chef says, actually, it's lunchtime. It's 1 o'clock. So if you all want to grab your lunch, I wouldn't advise you taking it on deck because the bear will be able to smell it. So of course, what do we do? So we all go back up onto the deck with our plate of lunch. And this polar bear came within 5 meters of us. This beautiful female came walking all the way in and they travel so fast across the ice. They're walking, but they really move. Yeah. And she came and she sniffed all around here, like where we'd all been working. It was obviously scent everywhere. So she could sniff us on the boat. Obviously there was floating dinner, smorgasbord up there, which you couldn't.
Wow, you didn't
Oh,
feel
it was
very
amazing.
good
So
then.
we sat there, and I don't know if you've ever done any game drives or anything in Africa, but everyone was just totally silent and totally focused. And I can't tell you how long it lasted, maybe an hour, maybe two, I don't know.
Yeah.
Lost time. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Sharon, what I liked about your work was the animation. I was just absolutely, I love that paper you used. And it sort of, I thought it sort of summed up what you're talking about, space and the openness, but creating a space within. But it just worked. It's poetic, that piece. I just love it. I don't know what sort of paper that is.
It was a tiny little notebook that I took, and I loved the it was like coordinates on the page with the graph paper. And once the polar bear had left and we unmoored the boat, we then spent about 7 hours trying to get out of this pack ice. And there was these constant moving tessellated shapes that were in front of the boat. So the captain literally was sort of, trying to duck and dive through to find the gaps. And I remember thinking, how can I draw that? Like, I don't know how to do it. So I thought, well, if I draw the negative spaces, which is the blue of the sea, because that's what was really obvious, then that's what I can do. So I made one of these drawings every 10 minutes. And each time it was the different changing negative space of the sea.
They're really beautiful. They really work.
Thank you.
Really work. You do feel that, you feel the time, the scale, everything. But you don't, because it's abstract.
Yeah. And a curator who came to actually see me at Rupture said, oh, they should be an animation, that you should animate those because they've all got the same reference grid. And so I thought, what a clever idea. I need to photograph them properly so they're all completely lined up, but it would be interesting to see how I can patch them together and what they would look like.
Well, you could still make fake ones, couldn't you? That to pitch them together to see how they would look.
And the other thing I did, which is really temporal drawings, was these other ones that are these ones. So these were
Amazing.
about 8-hour durational drawings. They were a pencil attached to the bottom of the bell of the rope of the bell, hanging in the dining hall where we ate. And I think there's always a bell on a boat for the captain to be able to get attention. And so I dangled a pencil. I got there was a girl on the boat who was a rope tyer, a knot maker. So I asked her to knot the end of the pencil for me. So I dangled it to just touch the paper, and then I left it overnight. And I had no idea what I was going to get in the morning. But this was a particularly rough night where the boat was going all which ways all night. And you can see that. And then this was another one, which obviously we were leaning with the wind. So, the pencil was constantly going that way and obviously flying off the page and then coming back and hitting that left-hand side. So that you can see those really strong marks of it whacking back in.
See, I actually see that your artwork is much more, it's got a lot more feeling and you make this connection, and I actually see the photographs as a distraction. Like it's almost like, like if you saw a painting, a great landscape, the most famous you could think of, or Mona Lisa, say for instance, and then you saw the person, a photograph of the person. You wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm actually thinking the presentation, I mean, that's so strong. These two pictures, all of them, but the last two is just like, wow. And because you're then talking about the actual experience, whereas in the photograph is kind of like looking at a chocolate box of, great chocolates, and you just want to dive in, but it's not your artwork. Do you see what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not my interpretation or experience of
So maybe the photographs should be, a presentation without the photographs, because it's your experience. It's not it, and then people maybe are even more curious about what it was like there, and they've got to see it in your artwork, not in the photographs.
Well, I don't know why she doesn't combine drawing onto the photograph, because the one that the one that you did for your degree show, It shows also drawings in a photograph.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, no,
photographs-
that wasn't Chud, that was all just a drawing. That
Was it
wasn't-
fantastic?
it was a photograph of my drawing, but it was just a drawing.
Wow. I just feel that your work should be on some sort of drawing onto the photograph to put it to the location. And
Yeah.
maybe, you know, transferring that in some way. But even putting ceramics in there, you know,
Mm,
putting sort of like photographs, drawing everything into a ceramic piece like a tile.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it has to be 3D somehow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I bought this Arctic clay back with me. I've probably got about 2 kilos of it, and it feels so precious. And I don't know whether it's right to fire it or not. Yeah, it's an ethical question as to if you're talking about environmental issues and the warming of the planet, and then to take this mud and freeze it in time. It's one good thing, I guess, to talk about and to make an object that will stay the test of time, and that's what a ceramic object is. But yeah, to just use the clay in its raw state is also, I think, powerful as well. I don't know.
I suppose you could
Maybe
put it in the
one-
deep
one-
freeze, couldn't you?
Sorry, say again?
Put it in the deep freeze so you keep it cold.
Well, you know what? Actually, that's another photo which I don't have here. But what was really interesting was the clay or the rocks go through this process through the seasons of freezing and unfreezing. And so if there's any water that's seeped into the rock, it actually ultimately cracks the rock. So you get these incredible patterns where the rock's just fractured and it's sat there, but it's just sort of freaked out and gone, wah!
Wow, amazing.
So I was thinking, actually, that's one thing I will test with the clay, is to actually make a little block of it, put it in my freezer, take it out, put it in, take it out, put it in, put it, and then fire it and see what it does. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. I sort of feel with your artwork, it's very beautiful and very sensitive, and I just I guess I mean, I know you're experimenting and it's the beginning and you're not sure what you're going to do with it, and you talk about how wowed you are on, that's not a word really, but how enormous the impact has been on you. And I wondered if there's some way of responding to that enormity, that feeling of that overwhelming, intense feeling in the actual work. Not from the sketches or the work that you made when you were there, but now when you're back, is there something else that you could generate that speaks to that? I guess I was thinking slightly of someone like Turner, who when you were showing us this pencil work, which is really great. I was just thinking about, he attached himself to a mast to get the feeling of the boat and the movement of the boat and stuff. And I was just wondering if there's a way of bringing out all that intense emotion that you must have been going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the drawings are sort of the first stage, like the exploratory stuff, and they were just a record of that experiencing at the time. But I can't agree with you more. I think the next step is to think about, how do I interpret that and create that spacing or that feeling for the audience, or that intensity or that scale, or all of those things that I was going through.
Yeah, not easy, I'm sure, but
it's really not easy. And bringing back drawings so these were the ones that I did as I was walking around the glacier, and then thinking I'm actually also mapping climate change, and I'm mapping space, and again, this is the meltwater and the edges, and I just got them out and started taking photographs and thought, I can put them all on the floor, and then, it almost makes like a land mass or a map. So there must be so many different ways that I can interpret what I saw and what I did.
Yes.
I'm coming back to your description again. Your drawings you saw as maps of sensation. And I think I can see you, like the previous slide, you had all the little images, that you would make something which would hang and then would move with some natural air to get that sort of sensation of whatever the boat rocking, or to try and bring that out in a more three-dimensional form, because you've got so many powerful sketches, and I think you need to bunch them together. Well, that's a bit crude way, but some sort of I don't know, a trellis or a patchwork, something which maybe with the clay you can use to make something which adds as linking them all together. So then it becomes part of a bigger picture.
The great thing about the clay that you've got there, though, is that it can it's still malleable, doesn't it? So you could use it forever. That 2K of clay that you've got, apart from the bit that you're doing experiment with in the fridge, you know, you've got it there that can shape it, do whatever you like with it, and then you know, revamp it again, you know, with liquid. So it's great. Clay, that's what's brilliant about clay. You've got this never-ending cycle.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. The other most extraordinary thing,
These are amazing.
these are indigo ink. So these were using the salt water of the glacial sort of melting ice, but it was sort of, I didn't drink it. I think it was quite sort of salt, brackish sort of water. But a friend of mine, because I said to a friend who's a dyer, I don't know what blue to take, because whatever blue I take is going to be the wrong blue. And she said, why don't you take indigo, because indigo is a natural dye and it responds to different situations. So it's just like you in the way you like to work, is if it's salty or if it's acidic or if it's whatever it is, the indigo will change. And so it was a great material to take. And it's also slightly unsoluble as well. They break it down, and to make it an ink or to make it a dye, they dissolve it in acid and then they balance the acid out. But you can see the sort of fragments of material that's floating around in there where it's sort of reformed. And again, it was sort of like that sort of material coming down the glaciers. It was really fun to work with. I wanted to show you, and again, different papers and different formats. There's the indigo breaking up again. But I was,
I love that.
This is a really long piece of canvas, so I took some, because again, I was thinking about how do I capture this notion of this panorama and this sort of vast landscape in a small square. And actually I thought if I do long, thin work, it would also help that panorama idea. And I was telling Yasmin that there was one afternoon on the boat where the captain was so great at bringing the boat into these extraordinarily dangerous places where, if the glacier, he wouldn't get too close, but it's full of ice and it's full of calving glacier, and it's just it's quite dangerous spot. And he's got this little sailing boat and he goes chugging in there. And I said to him at the lunch before we went to this location, I said, you're so great at taking us along these glacier fronts, and you're there like it's a widescreen TV in a department store, when they've used those digital ones to show you how good the screen is. And he was sort of like, oh, thanks, okay, great. And when we went to go into this space, I knew this massive glacier front was coming, and I had my roll of canvas, and I'd only had a small space to work, so I didn't know how long exactly it was. I had to keep it rolled up. So I had it all rolled up ready, and I was ready to draw, and I thought I'll draw when I get to that bit of the pointy mountain. I'll start there. And I was waiting, and the boat's sort of looping around, and then it's coming back, and then he stops. And I thought, damn, he's not going to go into this part where I was waiting to draw. And I looked to my left-hand side, and because that was a sort of muddy sort of mound, which was much more size was in relation to my body, we were still moving. So I thought, oh, okay, we're still moving, that's fine. I'll go back to looking at the way I was going to draw. And then I looked and I was like, no, we'd stopped. Actually, we've stopped the boat because nothing was moving. And then I checked and was like, no, we are moving. No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. And it was just this notion, you know, Jonathan always talks about the rupture of time and this deep time, and this sort of time was out of joint. And I can't tell you, but I thought I was going mad. And because these mountains and these landscapes are so big and so old, you can't relate to them. So they were just not moving. And for this very weird few minutes, I was thinking, I'm just losing the plot. And eventually, somehow it started to move, and then I started to draw, and then I drew my way all the way in, and I was unrolling it like a Chinese scroll. I was literally a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, keep going, and just trying to capture these sort of these energetics and these fissures and these marks, and yeah, and using the glacier again, the glacier water with the charcoal sort of to map my way in as I went.
Yeah, I think that's very what you've done. It's very effective.
Yeah.
It brings out the movement. Scale may be hard to tell, but it brings out that weird sense of time that you're trying to talk about.
So yeah, back to your point, Vanda, it's like, how on earth do I start to explore that in an exhibition space, or in a room, or in writing, or in sound, it's really tricky.
Yeah, I think maybe something will just something will happen, something will click, and then you'll know.
Sharyn, will you talk
Very
a little?
helpful.
Sharyn, will you talk a little bit about the light? Because you mentioned, because you in quite a lot of your photographs, you've got the sun out, but you also talked about when the sun wasn't out. How did you feel? What was it like? I don't want to use your words. What you told me, I was just, you talked about it being very grey, very black and white and grey on those days. And how did you then interpret that? Because you did a lot of studies of those.
Can you tell me which ones in particular you're thinking of? Or are they not here?
They're not here. They're almost like they were sort of vertical forms, and you had sort of black and greys and.
I can't think which ones you're talking about, but there was these moments where the light was just sort of tell me if it's something else you want me to discuss, but it was sort of like the light was softening and the atmosphere was sort of smudging everything in, you know, off the top. So the form that was there was sort of would disappear. So again, these very enigmatic sort of spaces would open up. And it was very monochromatic. I mean, most of the time, I have to say, if the sun wasn't out, it was really grey and black and white. And that was really surprising for me. Those moraines, those super highways were just black, or dark brown black.
And was that easy? Or not easy? How did you make your mind respond to that? Because when we're here in Britain, we're so used to having light. And then now the clocks have gone back, it's getting dark earlier, and we adjust. But when you've got that, would you have that at any point on the trip where it was just the whole day was just grey and dark?
Yeah, we did actually. And it was probably the days when I was doing these drawings where everything was just damp and drippy and raining, and it was probably the first afternoon or maybe the second afternoon where I was working with a Finnish printmaker, and we were on deck, and we were sort of standing there so damp and so sort of sodden, but we were working. So when you're working, you don't really notice. Like it wasn't, I think when you're working and everything is going well, it's fine. If it's not going well, then of course you start thinking, I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm fed up, and I'm not going to do this anymore. And so they were saying to everybody, if you'd like to come on the rubber zodiacs, we're going to take a group to the beach being one of those grey sort of areas. We're going to go and explore an old whaling station. and you're welcome to come. And the Finnish printmaker and I said, no, we're going to stay on the boat, because we were so wet and working. It's like, well, we're either going to be here working wet or we're going to be there working wet, but why bother to move ourselves? So we kept working. We were looking at these sorts of landscapes. So, you know, we weren't missing out. And we had some glacial ice that we had pulled up on the boat the day before that morning. So we were working with the ice and we were melting it and we were playing with it and we were doing all of this sort of stuff with it. And at about 5 o'clock, she said to me, I think it's time for a drink. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. And she said, I've got aquavit. Do you drink aquavit? And I said, I've never tried it, but I know it. She said, oh, it's a very famous Finnish drink. I have the very good aquavit from Finland. I bought it specially. I'm going to go and get some. You have to find the glasses. So, of course, there was a bar on the boat. So I went and got the glasses. And I said, and I know the ice to use. So she comes back with her aquavit. I've got the glasses. And then, I mean, this is where you put things in perspective. And maybe it's an indulgence, but the thing is melting in front of us anyway. So we took these huge chunks of ice and drop it on the floor, take a piece. No, too big. So, again. And we've got these 2 huge chunks of glacial ice with all those little black bits inside as well. Put it in the glass, just managed to fit it in. And then we pour the aquavit and we cheers. And we were laughing and, you know, saying, I don't know if this is a good or bad or, you know, very insensitive to do, but it puts it in perspective. It's like, here we are drinking, whether you're drinking sort of super old Scotch whiskey, malt whiskey or what, the value or the preciousness was actually the ice in the drink, which was millions of years old. So it definitely cheered up a great afternoon. There was a lichenologist who came back on board afterwards who was horrified. She was actually, she was a very entertaining character. And she said, are you kidding me? She said, you're drinking drinks with the glacial ice? And we said, yeah, it's great. And she said, imagine all the bacteria that's been trapped in there for millions of years and now you're drinking it. And we said, well, actually, have you cleaned your teeth with the water from the tank in the boat? It's probably worse.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it, that you've got ancient gut bacteria now, very ancient.
Yeah, amazing. And there were times where, you know, when we were going into these areas where you could literally, it was like a fizzing, like pop rocks or fizzing kind of sparkling water. You could just hear all the oxygen or all the carbon dioxide bubbles melting and popping.
Oh,
so
God.
It was just this whole area of like pop, 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 pop. And so you had this sort of effervescent sort of feeling of this, again, this energy, this sort of dancing, oxygenated space was really extraordinary.
And did you do any fishing?
No, we didn't.
Seriously, I'm just wondering if you got fish, if it was possible to get fish.
There must be fish.
Yeah, you didn't do any though.
No, we didn't, but there must be for the seals and the polar bears.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the big boat.
I think just kind of, you made me think there. I mean, I think there's a lot to do with time here in terms of how you develop the work. There's so much to do with time. You know, just that fact that you're drinking, you know, a million-year-old bit of, I don't know, glacier in your aquavit. I mean, just the concept of that is bizarre, isn't it?
It's really bizarre. It really is. And this notion, I mean, on that last day when I sat and wrote on that chalkboard and thought, how can I begin to tell you? You constantly felt so insignificant in these spaces. As I said, there's no way to locate yourself with any kind of dwelling, cultural reference, nothing. It's just like the environment and you're a speck on it, if you can even see yourself. And the landscape is just going to carry on. And we are here for such a short time, just passing through. And we talk about, and I don't not believe in climate change and all the rest of it. It's very obvious that it's happening, and it's a bad thing for our way of life and animals and everything else, and the way we all survive going forward. But at the end of the day, we're not about saving the planet per se. The planet's just going to continue to evolve, and Gaia is going to be fine. It's us that we have to worry about. It's the animals we have to worry about. We have to maintain and look after our lifestyle and our way of being here. And, you know, that should be with clean water and fresh air and all of those things that we need to have a really sustainable, healthy life. But when you're there for millions or billions of years, these mountains have been forming and these glaciers have been, you know, forming and then now melting. It's all going to carry on without us.
100%. But I think in response to that, it's taken, I don't know how many billions of years for us to evolve, and all the animals and plants and everything else around us, and the biodiversity, and we are destroying all that. And so how does that continue to evolve even when we've gone, if we're destroying it at such a rapid rate right now? So I suppose that it's the sort of material history of what we are that we're destroying, and we're kind of destroying a future or creating a new future, which is I don't know, a future with less potential for diversity. I suppose, yeah, we're specks. We're just there for, you know, boom. And most living things are, in a way, but when I say living, I don't mean the glaciers. I mean, you know, species, if you like. But something is within that continues, and if we destroy that, the genetic codes and all the rest of it, then that to me seems very, 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 very irresponsible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It just feels, I don't know, you know, all of the wars and all of the problems that we create as human beings just seem so ridiculous. You know, when you're there, you just think, what are we doing? What are we fighting over? What are we doing, blowing each other up? Like, what is that about? Just get on with this bigger picture.
Yeah. I guess you must feel like that when people might go into space. They must have the same feeling.
Totally.
Yeah, puts it all into perspective.
Yeah.
I'm terribly sorry, but I have to go.
Yeah, no, that's great. We're probably at time anyway. It's 7:05.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's fascinating, and I'd love to see more and the photographs and
I'm
talking
really
about it.
happy to talk about the experience. It was the most extraordinary art residency if anyone's ever interested. There were 20 odd crew on the boat, of which 4 guides were there to constantly do whatever it was that you wanted to do. If you wanted to drape yourself naked over one of those floating pieces of ice, they'd be there to help you. If you wanted to, you know, pull up the Arctic clay on the last anchor pull from the, you know, on the last day, they were there to, how many kilos would you like? I mean, it was extraordinary. So
amazing. Oh, we'll have to think about that. It's very exciting. Sounds amazing.
Oh,
brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Sharyn.
Thank you, Sharyn.
You're welcome. And I think it's Lester presenting next week. I'll check the list.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon.